So I could not believe this. I recently read that it's way cheaper to rent right now than it is to buy. Me being pretty doubtful about the things I read on the internet, I thought, yeah, that can't be right.
Yeah, right.
So I did some digging and a little math, and to buy $1 million house at an interest of 7% and a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, the monthly payment would be $7,400.
That's a lot of numbers.
Okay, I thought it's $1 million house, it's going to cost a lot. Then I looked up some rentals that would cost around $1 million to buy, like this one that overlooks Lake Coeur d'Alene, has a shop and a private dock to park your boat, and the monthly cost is $5,800.
That is cheaper and way more fun.
How is it this much cheaper? Then I heard my brain repeat the common saying, yeah, but they're just throwing money away, even if it is almost $2,000 less a month. But here's the thing. That $7,400 a month to buy a $1 million house is just the monthly payment. There's significant cost to be able to even get that mortgage.
Well, let's do some math.
You typically need 20% down just to qualify and not have private mortgage insurance. So that's $200,000. Then the loan origination fee, the inspection fee, the appraisal fees, they're all added. So you're looking at around an additional $20,000. So in addition to paying that $7,400 per month, you need to come to the table with $220,000.
A lot of dough. A lot of dough.
And don't forget about hidden opportunity costs. That $220,000 that's no longer in your account is missing an annual gain of about $10,000 to $14,000 annually at a 5 to 7% interest rate of return that you would have if it was invested in an index fund.
Say what now?
You will also need to pay around 5 to 6% when you go to sell that $1 million house, costing you anywhere from $50,000 to $60,000.
Bummer.
Now, there are upfront costs to rent as well. You're looking at first and last months and security deposit and rental insurance. So around $15,000. So I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Buying $1 million house right now doesn't make a lot of sense.
Nah, makes no sense.
Especially if you have to stretch to do it. But what about the average priced home? Is it the same deal for those? Let's take a look.
We're going to do more math drills.
The average priced home where I live is around $550,000. At $550,000, you don't need to come in with 20% down, more like 3.5% on average. So instead of $200,000, you only need $20,000. Yes, you'll have private mortgage insurance, but even with that, you're looking at a payment of around $3,900 a month. The monthly cost to rent an average price home is around $2,900. That's only a $1,000 per month difference.
The math speaks for itself.
Now, $1,000 a month can be a significant difference, but remember, homes go up in value, about 3% a year on average. You can write off all the interest on your mortgage payment from your taxes, and you won't be subject to rent increases or landlord inspections. But here's the real big factor to consider. Interest rates go down, and rent only goes up. And right now, the federal government knows interest rates need to go down soon, because when rent becomes that much cheaper than buying, the federal government starts to lose a whole bunch of revenue they desperately need to fund the annual budget and stop this annual deficit that's leading to printing money, devaluing the dollar, and triggering inflation.
Money, please. Money, please.
And since there's a multi-million unit shortage of homes in our country, when they lower interest rates, home prices will continue to climb faster than that 3% average, which means rent prices will go up too. So here's my suggestions for those that are in the $1 million price range, and then I'll go over my suggestions for those who are considering whether they should buy or rent an average price house. For those considering buying $1 million house, don't, especially if you're stretching to do it. Buy a $550,000 house and take the money you're saving and invest it into the S&P 500. The undeniable truth is that home prices have only increased 250% since 1990, while the S&P 500 has gone up 2,800% in the same amount of time.
That's a bit different.
Between the two payments of $7,400 versus $3,900, you're saving $3,500 per month. Plus, you'll still have your $200,000 down payment. If you invested all of that into an index fund over 10 years at an average return of 7%, you would have over $990,000, and your $550,000 home would now be worth $739,000 with a balance of around $435,000 at an interest rate of 4%.
Money, 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 money.
Compare that to buying that $1 million house. After 10 years, it's now only worth $1.34 million at an average price increase of 3% and a balance of $650,000 left if you're able to secure a 5% interest rate.
We're house poor.
And that equity can't be touched without selling, doing a cash out refinance, or a home equity line of credit. I know an average price home is not as exciting as $1 million home, but you know what is more exciting than $1 million home? Being a freaking millionaire.
Woohoo! We're rich!
Now, you might be thinking, why not just skip buying a house altogether, rent an average price home so you can invest all that extra money and increase those returns even more? Great question, and it might make total sense for you to do that. But here's the factors that need to be considered before you make that choice. The first thing is selection. Where I live, there are very few rental homes to choose from, especially ones in that price range. Because of the limited supplies of rentals, you probably won't get the house you want in the area that you want to be in. This might end up costing you more in drive time and fuel.
Oh, that's not good.
The other thing is condition. Rental homes in that price range are what investors go for. Investors typically only look at their return on investment, so if they can still get their homes rented out with doing minimal repairs, cheap remodels, and installing low-end appliances, that's what they're gonna do.
That's weak, dude.
And the last thing is landlords. The chances are you're going to be working with a rental management company or a landlord that doesn't really care about your issues or complaints. Landlords are pretty notorious for ignoring complaints about the smell of mildew, brushing off repairs for things like faulty light switches or broken windows, and they will usually increase your rent just enough to get you to not leave, but enough to make you wish that they wouldn't have raised your rent.
Do you have to do that?
But honestly, none of that matters if you fall into any of these next categories. These are the people that definitely should not buy a house. If you're in a job that feels shaky, you're about to start a business, or don't like to stay in one place for too long, don't buy a house. It's a lot easier financially on your credit to break a lease than it is to sell a house or to stop paying your mortgage. Don't do that. If cash flow is a concern, definitely rent a home.
Listen to this guy.
If buying a home is going to be a big financial stretch, don't do it. The first house I bought was in 2009, and 3 months later, the company I worked for went under. The stress of that caused health issues that took me years to overcome. It's probably where all my gray hair comes in.
No, because you're old.
You need to be able to afford the down payment and have at least 3 to 6 months of reserves in the bank, or at least have some really high-end trade skills or experience in a field that is in demand and has high average pay. And if you're not sure where you want to live, or you're dating someone that lives in a different city or state, just rent. There's no reason to tie yourself to a mortgage on a house that you're not totally sure you will stay in for at least 5 years. And if you suck at doing maintenance or hate having responsibilities, renting might be better for you.
It's very simple. You got to make the hinges tighter so the oven door is more secure. So what you do is, you take out your phone and you call the handyman.
Look, the price of skilled labor is ridiculous right now. I'm actually making a video on it to help people understand the financial risks of buying a large home. So if you aren't good with watching YouTube tutorials and figuring out some things for yourself, let your landlord do it. Or at least make sure you have plenty of money saved up so you can pay someone to fix your air conditioner when it goes out during the hottest weeks of the summer. And if you're buying a home because you were told it's the best investment you can make, don't believe that.
That's ignorant.
Obviously, a 2,800% increase in 35 years is a whole lot more than 250%. So if you're looking to invest, put your money in an index fund and rent until you can buy a home that you really want, in an area you really want to live, and a place that you can see yourself staying for at least 5 years.
Very smart.
And it obviously doesn't always make sense to rent. For instance, I sold my house in 2018 to rent a home with my then fiance until we got married. We figured once we were married, we would just buy another house together. Well, it did not work out that well. In 2018, I sold my house for $325,000, and we found a really great rental for around $2,100 per month in a really great neighborhood. In fact, I still live in that neighborhood. Fast forward to 9 months after our wedding, and the entire world was shutting down. Prices continued to skyrocket, and the house we ended up buying in 2022 ended up costing us $150,000 more than it would have if we would have bought it in 2019. And that house I sold in 2018 for $325,000, Yeah, it's worth around $600,000 now.
I'm not a smart man.
We would have continued to rent the house that we were in, but unfortunately, it was a little too small for us. So to rent a house like the one we bought would have increased our rent by at least $1,500 per month. All that to say, life can be unexpected and things can happen that can make rent prices skyrocket. At least with a mortgage, you know what your payment is going to be every month. And when you're a homeowner, you get to benefit from the prices of houses going up versus feeling the consequences of it.
That's cool.
But if you're on the fence between buying a house or choosing to rent, here's how to know you're ready to buy. You're planning to stay in the same place for at least 5 years. The longer you stay, the better you spread out the upfront costs and the easier it is to sell that home with plenty of equity to put into your next one or into the S&P 500. And if you have a strong down payment and an emergency fund for unexpected surprises, you're ready to buy. If you can put 20% down, you can avoid private mortgage insurance, making your monthly payment more affordable. And again, that emergency fund should be at least 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses just in case. And if the market is stable and favorable, it's a good time to buy. Ultimately, low interest rates and fair home prices equals the best timing, but since we know that the Federal Reserve is going to have to reduce interest rates and there's a housing shortage, it's better to buy before rates drop to get a home before the prices increase due to demand. It's also a good idea to buy when you're in a growing area with high demand and limited supply because you're likely to gain a solid long-term appreciation of your home.
Makes sense.
When you're financially disciplined and can absorb unexpected costs. Like I said, skilled labor is expensive, so unless you plan on learning how to replace a water heater, fix a furnace, or repair some plumbing leaks, be ready to pay for some skilled tradesmen to work on your home. And most importantly, it makes sense to buy when you're emotionally ready to buy. Homeownership is a big commitment, and there's a lot of factors to consider. You need to be ready to settle down a little bit and stay in one place. You need to be sure you have solid income and an emergency fund. This takes a lot of maturity and responsibility, and it's not something you want to take lightly. So maybe you're thinking, okay, but where is it actually cheaper to buy than rent right now?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Turns out there are still quite a few places where buying makes more financial sense than renting. Cities like Detroit, Cleveland, Birmingham, Memphis, and Pittsburgh. In Detroit, for example, it's nearly 60% cheaper to buy than rent. That's not a typo. In some of these places, owning a home could save you hundreds of dollars per month. But here's the part people skip over. There's a reason it's that cheap. It's not just some real estate loophole nobody knows about. These areas typically have higher crime rates, fewer high-paying jobs, and overall less demand.
Oh, that's not good.
And when fewer people want to live in a place, prices go down. It's simple as that. The other thing is desirability. Let's be real, not every city is booming. Some of these places have seen years of economic decline, or the schools aren't great, or there's just not a ton of investment going on.
This place is falling apart.
And here's another layer most people don't think about. In a lot of these cities, rent is high not because people love living there, but because a lot of folks simply can't buy. Maybe their credit's shot, maybe lending is tough, maybe people are just stuck. So you've got this weird setup where buying is cheap, but renting is expensive because demand for rental stays high even when home values are low. Now compare that to places like Seattle, San Diego, or San Jose, where buying can cost double or even triple what it costs to rent the exact same place. In those markets, unless you're sitting on a pile of cash or locking in for the long haul, it's probably smarter to rent and wait. So yeah, there are places where buying is cheaper, but they come with trade-offs. Less competition, lower prices, sure, but also fewer job opportunities, slower growth, and in some cases, safety concerns. It doesn't mean they're bad places. It just means they aren't on everyone's radar, which is why the numbers work out the way they do. So if you're looking at a map, trying to figure out where to go next, don't just chase the lowest price. Look at the full picture. What's the job market like? How safe is the area? And what's your long-term plan? Now, I'm based in North Idaho, but no matter where you're looking at moving in the United States, we can help. If you've noticed, I'm very honest with the information I provide, and I only work with people that do the same. So if you're looking at moving and need help finding an honest, hardworking realtor, let us know and we can get you connected with one. It costs you nothing and it helps support this channel when you call and let us help you. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure you check out my channel and some of the other videos on there. And until the next one, I'll see you guys later.